The Galactic Council chamber glowed with a pale, cold light, a light that made even the most confident among the alien delegates feel uneasy. From every corner of the galaxy, leaders and envoys had gathered, seated in their tall, ornate thrones. Billions of citizens from distant worlds watched the event through shimmering projection screens. Every word spoken here would be heard across the stars. Silence filled the air as the council prepared to deliver its judgment. All eyes turned toward the single figure that stood alone in the center of the chamber, the envoy of Earth. He was calm. His face revealed nothing. No fear, no anger, not even confusion. He simply stood there, waiting, as if he already knew what would be said. The aliens whispered among themselves, their voices soft, filled with curiosity. Some expected the human to beg to fall to his knees and plead for mercy. Others thought he might shout or protest, but he only stood still, his dark eyes steady, his hands at his sides. At last, the high speaker of the council rose. His long robe shimmered with faint threads of silver as his voice echoed through the vast chamber. He spoke with pride, with the weight of authority carried by countless centuries of rule. The decision of the council is final. Earth has broken too many laws. Earth has grown too bold, too dangerous. Humanity is no longer welcome among the stars. From this moment, you are exiled. No ships of Earth may enter our borders. No voice of Earth may sit in this chamber again. Gasps spread across the hall. Delegates shifted in their seats. The announcement was heavier than many expected. For decades, Earth had been both admired and feared. Their progress had been fast, almost unnatural. Some species saw them as valuable allies. Others saw them as a threat to the Council's long-held power. But now, with a single declaration, the matter was decided. Humanity was cast out. Still, the human envoy did not move. His expression did not change. He neither argued nor resisted. He only stood there, silent. The council members glanced at one another, unsettled by his stillness. Normally, exiled worlds shouted in outrage, cried out in grief, or made desperate promises of loyalty. But this human gave them nothing. The silence grew heavier. It pressed down on the chamber like a weight, until one alien delegate finally whispered, "Why does he not speak? Why does he not beg?" Another voice followed, lower and sharper. "Do they not understand what has been done to them?" The whispers spread quickly, a soft wave rolling through the chamber. Some tried to hide their unease, but others could not. The humans were supposed to be loud, passionate, unpredictable. Yet here stood one of their leaders, silent as stone. The envoy finally raised his head, his eyes sweeping over the council, as though memorizing every face. The high speaker straightened, uncomfortable under that gaze. "You may return to your world," he said, his voice firmer now, almost defensive. "You may take our judgment to your people. Remember, Earth is no longer a part of this galaxy's order." The human inclined his head slightly, but he still said nothing. Slowly, with calm steps, he turned and began to walk toward the great doors of the chamber. His footsteps echoed through the silence, each one sharp and deliberate. No guards moved to stop him, no one dared. As he passed, alien envoys leaned away, as though his presence burned too close. Some could not help but watch him with a growing sense of unease. Others felt fear pricking at their hearts. How could a man walk so calmly after hearing his world had been cast out forever? When the doors finally closed behind him, the chamber erupted with voices. Delegates argued, their tones rising and falling like waves. Some said the humans would collapse without the council. Some insisted Earth would soon beg to return. Yet hidden among those voices were quieter, more nervous ones, voices that wondered if silence was more dangerous than anger. "Why did he not protest?" one asked. "Why did he not shout?" another replied. "Because," a third whispered, almost afraid to say it, "perhaps he does not need us anymore." The words hung in the air, unspoken by the council leaders but felt in every corner of the chamber. Silence, calmness, patience. These were not the human ways the galaxy had come to expect. And yet perhaps that was what made them most dangerous. Across the galaxy, billions of citizens continued to watch the broadcast. On countless worlds, people saw the same thing. A human envoy exiled by the Council, walking away without a single word. Some laughed at Earth's humiliation. Some pitied them. But many, even if they would not admit it, felt the same strange unease. What kind of people heard their doom declared and answered only with silence? The council chamber grew restless as arguments carried on, but the high speaker sat back down, his expression uncertain. For the first time in centuries, he felt the weight of doubt pressing against his pride. The council had spoken, yes. They had declared exile, yes. But was this truly the end of Earth? Or had they just awakened something far more dangerous? The thought settled deep in his mind, though he tried to push it away. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, watching silently as humanity's fate shifted on an invisible thread. And somewhere beyond those stars, on the small blue world called Earth, people waited. They did not scream. They did not beg. They prepared. The council believed the matter was finished, but the humans had only just begun, and though the aliens did not know it yet, that silence in the chamber would echo across history. For silence was not surrender. Silence was the sound of humanity sharpening its blade in the dark. The whispers of the council's betrayal would spread, and with them, a new fear. What happens when the quiet ones finally choose to strike? The answer was coming. The envoy's ship drifted silently through the void as it carried him back to Earth. No words were spoken inside the cabin. The other humans with him did not ask questions, and he did not explain. They all knew what had happened. They had expected it, perhaps, even planned for it. Yet the quiet inside the ship was heavy, as though each breath carried the weight of betrayal. When the vessel finally broke through the atmosphere of Earth, the great cities lit up below. Towers of steel and glass rose high, glowing like veins, a fire against the night. The ship landed on a hidden platform deep within the capital, where generals, scientists, and leaders were already waiting. Their faces were calm, but their eyes carried a hard edge, the look of people who had prepared for this day. The envoy stepped out, his boots striking the metal floor with a steady rhythm. No applause greeted him. No voices asked what the council had said. They already knew. The silence of the envoy told them everything. One of the generals, a tall woman with sharp eyes, broke the silence at last. So, it has begun. The envoy gave a single nod. His voice was low but steady, carrying through the chamber. The council has exiled us. We are no longer welcome among the stars. They think they have stripped us of power. They think we are weak. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the faces before him. They are wrong. Around the table, no one looked surprised. Plans had already been drawn. Designs hidden in the dark now came into light. Earth had long known this moment would arrive. The council feared their growth, their hunger for knowledge, their rapid progress. The betrayal was not sudden. It was inevitable. A scientist leaned forward, her hands trembling slightly as she activated a display. Holograms of ships appeared above the table, sleek and powerful, more advanced than anything the council suspected Earth possessed. Some were warships bristling with weapons that glowed faintly with untapped energy. Others were smaller, faster, designed to slip past sensors unseen. We have prepared, she said quietly. For years we have worked in secret. The council never saw. They never imagined what we could build. Soon, a murmur passed through the room, but it was not fear. It was determination. Humanity had been forced to wait, forced to grow in silence while others looked down on them. But waiting had its advantage. While the galaxy underestimated them, they had sharpened their claws. The envoy raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. His voice cut through the room. The council believes our silence means weakness, but our silence is a weapon. They do not know us. They do not understand what it means to be human. They think exile is the end. It is only the beginning. Outside the chamber, deep beneath the Earth's surface, vast hangars came alive. Thousands of workers moved like shadows, guiding enormous starships into readiness. Engines roared to life, humming with power that had been hidden for decades. Weapons that had never been tested outside of secret laboratories glowed with dangerous light in orbit. Satellites that once seemed harmless adjusted their paths, revealing hidden cores of advanced technology. Defense grids powered up, their signals cloaked, invisible to alien eyes. Earth had been underestimated for the last time. The general's voice carried above the hum of machines. The council wanted us to bow. They wanted us broken, but they will learn. Humanity does not break. The envoy stepped forward, his expression still calm, but behind his eyes burned a fire no alien could ever understand. Let them think. We are finished, he said. Let them laugh. While they celebrate, we prepare. And when the time comes, we will strike. Far across the stars, the council celebrated their judgment. They believed Earth had been silenced, humbled, and cast into the shadows. But in the silence of that exile, something was stirring. A force was growing, quiet but unrelenting. The outpost floated at the edge of council space, a lonely fortress of steel and light surrounded by endless dark. It was meant to be routine, a simple watchtower guarding trade routes and patrol lanes. The soldiers stationed there believed themselves safe. They laughed, they trained, they complained of boredom. No one expected war. Then the alarms began to scream. Sensors lit up with sudden energy spikes. Unknown ships emerged from the void, appearing as if they had always been there, hidden, in the shadows between the stars. The officer on duty stared at the screen, his voice breaking. Contacts detected. Too many. Too fast. The commander of the outpost rushed to the window, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of warships slid into view, their hulls sleek and sharp, glowing faintly with blue light. They moved with precision, with discipline like predators circling their prey. The commander whispered a single word as if saying it out loud made it real. Humans. The council fleet scrambled to respond. Fighters launched from their bays, engines roaring as they streaked into the void. Defense turrets locked on and fired, filling the blackness with streams of plasma fire. For a moment, it seemed like the outpost could hold, but then the humans struck. Weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen cut through the council ships. Energy beams tore across shields as though they were paper. Missiles with strange, twisting trails slammed into warships and ripped them apart in bursts of fire. The humans did not charge wildly. They fought with brutal precision, targeting engines, disabling weapons, destroying command ships first. Every move was calculated, every strike cold and efficient. The outpost commander shouted orders, but his voice was drowned by the chaos. Council ships exploded one after another, their flames reflecting against the steel walls of the station. Screams filled the comms. They're everywhere. We can't hold. They knew exactly where to hit us. Inside the command room, panic spread. The commander's hands shook as he activated the distress beacon broadcasting across the sector. This is Outpost Theta 9. We are under attack, unknown human fleet, requesting immediate reinforcements. His words cut off as the room shook violently, consoles sparking, lights flickering. A blast had struck the heart of the station, through the cracked window. The commander saw the end. A massive human warship loomed closer, its weapons glowing brighter than a star. He could almost see figures standing on its bridge, watching, silent and calm. The commander's voice, lowered to a whisper, meant only for himself. They came back. The human weapon fired. The station was consumed in fire and silence. When the council received the distress call, it was already too late. The message was fragmented, filled with static and screams. But one word carried clear through the noise, repeated over and over by broken voices. Humans. 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 Across the galaxy, the story spread like wildfire. The council tried to silence. It tried to dismiss it as an accident, as pirates, as lies. But survivors from shattered ships told the truth. They had seen the human fleet. They had seen weapons that should not exist. and they had seen their comrades die with no chance to fight back. Fear grew stronger. The whispers were no longer whispers. They were spoken openly now in markets, in barracks, even in the council halls. Humanity had struck its first open blow. The silence was broken, and the sound it made was war. And somewhere far away on Earth, the envoy stood before his people. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. His voice was steady, the same calm tone he had carried in the council chamber. This is only the beginning. The great chamber of the council was louder than it had ever been. Delegates shouted over one another, voices sharp with panic, fear, and anger. The memory of the destroyed outpost hung heavy in the air, replayed again and again on flickering holograms. Council warships burning. The station breaking apart. Human vessels cutting through fleets as though nothing could stop them. The speaker pounded his staff against the floor, his voice rising above the chaos. "Silence! We will have order in this chamber." The shouting dimmed, though the fear did not fade. The delegates leaned forward in their seats, eyes filled with unease. Some still clung to denial, but most knew the truth now. Humanity had returned, not as outcasts begging for mercy, but as hunters. One delegate hissed, his scaled skin glinting under the chamber lights. "You swore they were weak. You swore exile would break them. And now, our fleets burn. Our soldiers die. What else have you hidden from us?" The speaker straightened, but his words came slower now. "The humans, they must have developed in secret. Stolen technology, perhaps. Smugglers, traitors. Someone must have aided them. Alone, they could not have built such power." Another voice cut him down. "Do you still not see? They needed no one. They did it themselves. While we mocked them, they prepared. While we cast them aside, they sharpened their claws." The chamber rippled with uneasy murmurs. Some demanded immediate war, a massive fleet to crush Earth before it grew any stronger. Others urged caution, warning that to underestimate the humans again would be a fatal mistake. The arguments grew heated, accusations flying from every side. Finally, a general of the council's military rose, his voice carrying over the debate. "Enough. We cannot sit here while humans strike at our borders. We must respond with strength. We must send fleets, massive fleets, crush them before they spread further." Many cheered at his words, desperate for action, desperate to feel safe again. The speaker seized on their support. "Yes, we will gather the full strength of the council. We will remind Earth that they are nothing compared to us." But in the shadows of the chamber, a smaller voice whispered, unheard by most. "And if we are wrong, if our fleets do not return?" The vote was called, swift and decisive. Warships were dispatched from dozens of systems, pulled together into a massive armada. It was the greatest show of force the council had assembled in centuries. The galaxy watched with bated breath as the fleets thundered into the stars, banners raised high, confident that they would crush the rebellion before it could spread. Yet doubt lingered. Deep down, many remembered the envoy's silence, the calm way he had walked from this very chamber. They remembered how he did not beg, how he did not protest, how his stillness seemed heavier than anger. And now, as the fleets departed, some wondered if silence had been a warning. Days later, a hush fell over the council once more. No reports came from the fleets, no victories, no battles, no survivors. Entire armadas had vanished into the dark. Only fragments of messages reached back, shouts of fear, ships breaking apart, human weapons tearing through defenses with impossible speed. Then, nothing. The council chamber grew cold. Delegates looked at one another, and for the first time, no one shouted, no one denied, no one pretended. They all felt the same dread sinking into their bones. The fleets had not silenced humanity. Humanity had silenced the fleets. The skies above Earth shimmered with the glow of warships. For weeks, the planet had remained quiet, hidden from the galaxy's gaze, but now the humans no longer cared to hide. Their fleets filled the orbit, row upon row of steel and light, engines burning like small suns. Weapons lined their hulls, silent but ready, each one a promise of destruction. Beyond the system, the Council's armada advanced. It was vast, a wall of ships stretching across the stars. The Council had gathered everything they could: warships, cruisers, carriers, countless fighters. They had come expecting victory, expecting surrender. To them, this was the final move, the strike that would end humanity's defiance forever. But Earth did not bow. From the command deck of a great human flagship, the envoy stood among his generals. He looked out through the wide glass at the approaching armada, his face calm, his eyes steady. Around him, the air buzzed with the hum of powerful engines and the low voices of officers preparing for war. "They think we are afraid," a general said, her voice sharp. "They think we will run." The envoy's answer was soft, but every soul on the deck heard it. "Then let them learn." The first wave of Council fighters surged forward, engines screaming. Their weapons lit the dark, streams of plasma fire crossing the void. The human ships waited. For a heartbeat, they seemed to do nothing at all. Then the order was given. The silence broke. Human weapons roared to life, unleashing light brighter than stars. Energy beams slashed through the first wave of fighters, tearing them apart in an instant. Missiles streaked out, weaving and twisting with impossible precision, striking warships deep in the Council formation. Entire cruisers vanished in sudden fireballs. On the Council flagships, panic erupted. Commanders shouted orders, trying to regroup, trying to push forward. But the humans moved faster. Their ships danced through the battlefield, shields glowing, engines burning, weapons cutting through fleets as though the laws of war had been rewritten. The galaxy had never seen weapons like these. Plasma shields that swallowed fire and spat it back. Cannons that pierced the strongest armor in a single strike. Stealth ships that appeared from nowhere, striking at the heart of the armada before fading back into the void. From the surface of Earth, millions watched the battle unfold in the sky above, the heavens glowing with streaks of light and fire. The people did not tremble. They did not hide. They stood tall, knowing this was their moment. In the Council chamber far away, the delegates stared in horror as the reports came in. Ship after ship lost, fleets collapsing, commanders begging for retreat. The great armada, once the pride of the galaxy, was being torn apart before their very eyes. And still the envoy remained calm. On the flagship, his voice carried through the comms, steady and cold. "They cast us into exile. They thought silence meant defeat. Now they will learn the truth." A wave of human warships surged forward, breaking the Council lines, driving straight into the heart of the armada. Explosions lit the void like suns, being born and dying all at once. The Council fleet faltered, fear spreading faster than orders could be given. The humans pressed on, relentless. Their silence had ended, and in its place came thunder. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy saw the Council bleed. And in that moment, every world watching knew the truth. Humanity was no longer a minor voice to be silenced. They were a power that could not be ignored. The envoy's final words echoed across the battlefield, reaching the ears of allies, enemies, and strangers alike. Earth stands, and the stars will remember. The galaxy trembled in the days that followed. News of the Council's defeat spread faster than light, carried by traitors, smugglers, and desperate survivors. No amount of censorship could contain it. Every world, every colony, every station heard the same story. The great armada, once thought unstoppable, had been broken. Human ships had torn through fleets as though they were nothing, and Earth still stood, unbowed, unbroken. For centuries, the Council had ruled through fear. Species obeyed not because they loved the Council, but because they believed resistance was hopeless. The Council's fleets were too large, their weapons too powerful, their reach too vast. But now the illusion was shattered. If humanity could fight back, then anyone could. On distant worlds, whispers turned to bold words. In shadowed alleys, rebels spoke openly of revolt. In mining colonies long crushed under Council rule, workers laid down their tools and raised stolen weapons. In the grand cities of once loyal species, crowds gathered in defiance, chanting the same word again and again: freedom. The Council tried to respond. They sent orders. They demanded obedience, They promised punishment. But their threats no longer carried the same weight. Soldiers began to question their commanders. Governors began to hesitate. Some even turned their ships against the council, choosing to fight alongside humanity rather than against them. The first rebellions were small, an outpost refusing to pay tribute, a colony seizing its own defenses. But like sparks on dry grass, they spread quickly, unstoppable. Entire systems rose in defiance, fleets breaking away from council control. The once mighty empire began to fracture. From their hidden command centers, humanity watched it unfold. Generals studied the maps as more and more systems lit up with rebellion. The envoy stood among them, his face calm as always, though his eyes burned with quiet fire. "They were never strong," he said softly. "They only looked strong because no one dared to fight. Now they see that the council can bleed, and when power bleeds, others rise to strike it down." On Earth, the people did not celebrate wildly. They worked, they built, they prepared. Humanity knew the war was far from over, but they also knew something had changed. They were no longer alone. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Delegates shouted over one another, their unity broken, their voices filled with fear. Some demanded peace with Earth at any cost. Others screamed for vengeance. But none could ignore the truth. The galaxy itself was slipping from their grasp. For the first time in living memory, the council was no longer feared. It was hunted. And across the stars, a quiet understanding grew among billions of voices. Humanity had not just risen for themselves. They had lit a fire the council could not put out. The turning tide had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council's homeworld had always been a symbol of power. Its towers stretched into the clouds, its cities glowed brighter than suns, and its halls echoed with the voices of rulers who believed themselves eternal. For centuries, no enemy had ever dared to threaten it. To the galaxy, it was untouchable. But on this day, the skies above the homeworld burned. Human fleets descended in silence, engines humming like distant thunder. They came not in secret, not hidden in the shadows, but openly, proudly, filling the heavens with steel and fire. Behind them, allied ships from newly rebellious worlds joined the formation, their banners raised high. Together they formed an armada the council had never dreamed could exist. Panic swept through the capital. Civilians ran through the streets, their eyes wide with terror as human warships blotted out the stars. Alarms howled across the planet. Defense turrets activated, shields rose, and what remained of the council fleet scrambled into the air. But even the defenders knew it was hopeless. They had seen what humanity could do. Inside the grand chamber, the high speaker stood pale and trembling. His voice, once filled with pride, now cracked with fear. "They would not dare. They would not attack us here." But even as he spoke, the walls trembled with distant blasts. The humans had already broken through the outer defenses. From the bridge of the flagship that led the assault, the envoy watched the battle unfold. His face was calm, the same calm he had carried on the day of Earth's exile. Around him, officers stood ready, their hands steady, their voices sure. Humanity had come not for survival now, but for justice. The envoy gave a single order. "Begin." The sky erupted. Human weapons struck with precision, tearing through the last of the council's defenses. Towers crumbled, ships fell burning into the atmosphere, fire rained down upon the once proud capital. The council's cries for mercy were drowned by the thunder of humanity's advance. In the chamber below, the delegates begged for peace. Some wept, others cursed, but none had the strength to stand against what was coming. They had betrayed Earth, believing exile would break them. Now their betrayal returned to them, sharp as a blade. At last, the doors to the chamber burst open. Human soldiers entered, their armor glowing faintly in the dim light. Behind them walked the envoy, calm as ever. The council froze, their voices falling to silence. He stepped forward, his eyes sweeping over the trembling rulers who had once cast Earth aside. For a long moment he said nothing, and the silence grew heavy, unbearable. Then his voice filled the chamber, low and steady. every word sharp as steel. "You taught us betrayal," he said. "Now we teach you fear." The council bowed their heads, some in shame, others in terror. But humanity did not come to kneel. The envoy raised his hand, and the soldiers moved forward, seizing the chamber, seizing the very heart of galactic power. Above, the fleets spread across the skies, their victory certain. Below, the people of the homeworld watched as their rulers fell. The empire that had ruled for centuries was broken in a single day. For the first time in history, the galaxy belonged not to the council, but to those they had tried to silence. And, in the quiet that followed the storm, one truth echoed across every star, whispered by every voice, feared by every ruler: humanity's revenge had begun.